Welcome back to day 3 of the 5-day fast start. Now let's just go ahead and dive right in. First, we're going to cover a quick recap of what we learned on day 2, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to learn today. So in day 2, yesterday, we learned that, in today's information overload world, that guitar players get stuck. It's not because they don't have the information, it's because they don't have the guidance on how to use the information, right? We talked about how most guitar learning formats just cause all these unnecessary roadblocks, and it's not the player's fault, it is the method's fault. We talked about the 3 most common types of guitar teachers, the song teachers, the celebrity teachers, and the textbook teachers, and why they leave you stuck. We talked about the great guitar theory trap, and why it makes you believe that you need to learn all that theory out there before you can ever start playing freely and sounding good, and how that's just not true at all. We talked about how the pros make it look so easy, and that's because they use tools that most guitar players never find out about, which we'll talk about today, and they also train their fingers to make playing look easy. And finally, we talked about how your next level, the next step, the next breakthrough for you is hidden in what you do not know. So today, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to discover the invisible string pattern that unlocks the guitar neck forever and instantly makes everything make sense when you use it on your guitar. We'll talk about the 7 feelings and how those let you play up and down the neck without thinking or even knowing what the names of the notes are called. We'll talk about the 2 components of guitar playing, the big overarching components that you need to develop and you need to balance if you want to become an accomplished guitarist that can pick up the guitar and play whatever you want, and anyone can do it, and we'll talk about how. We're going to talk about what order you should learn things in to make the fastest progress in the shortest amount of time and avoid all those headaches that plague so many guitar players. And finally, we're going to discover why F plus P plus fit plus H plus R equals freedom on guitar. What all those stand for, why that gives you freedom on guitar, and a guaranteed way to achieve it. So first things first, the key that unlocks the guitar neck forever. Are you ready to discover this? So let's start here with the piano. You've seen a piano before, right? I want you to notice that this is a piano keyboard, okay? If you play this way, to the right, the pitch of the sound goes higher. If you play this way to the left, the pitch of the sound goes lower. Anybody who's ever seen a piano player or interacted with the piano would know this. But what a lot of people don't know, maybe you already do know this, but for the people that don't know, a piano is actually divided up into repeating sections. That's what these color blocks are for. And I want you to notice that each one of these sections has a series of 2 black keys, then 3 black keys, right? Look at this next section. 2 black keys, 3 black keys, 2 black keys, 3 black keys, right? And this has 7 white keys. Okay, remember the number 7. But I just want to show you how the piano is divided up, right? It's just a bunch of these repeating sections. And if you might know that these sections are called an octave. If not, that doesn't matter right now. It's not important. I just want you to see these sections, okay? Well, it turns out when you map these same sections out on the guitar, there's actually a similar section that repeats over and over and over and over, just like this. If I want you to look at my mouse, there's a section that repeats over and over and over and over and over again on the fretboard, and there's no holes or gaps. It covers the entire fretboard. In fact, it overlaps. And it hangs off the fretboard. So don't worry about that right now. This is just a picture to show you how it works. But the guitar has a similar pattern, right? To what is the repeating section that's on the piano, the guitar has the same thing too. We call it the freedom key pattern. The reason we call it that is because a student originally named it the key that unlocks the guitar neck forever. He called it the freedom key, okay? It covers the entire fretboard, and it uses what we call an invisible, you can't see it, a 7th string. So most people play 6-string guitars. Obviously it doesn't have a 7th string, so this invisible imaginary 7th string is actually one of the hidden tools that pros use to be able to make playing guitar look so easy. Now, this is the actual pattern here. When you apply this pattern on your neck, some of these positions will shift just because of the way that the guitar is tuned. But this pattern right here repeats over the entire guitar neck, beginning on every string, every fret, everywhere on the guitar neck, and there's always an invisible 7th string, all right? Now, these dots may not make that much sense right now. It's not that important. If this down here was the fat string, the low E string, this pattern is upside down. So you would play what I call 3 big stretches in a row. So big stretch, big stretch, big stretch. Here's 3 of those. And then that's followed by 2 what I call middle finger patterns, because you would use your first finger, middle finger, and then pinky. and then same thing on the next line. So 2 middle finger patterns, and then finally 2 what I call ring finger patterns. So you have the first finger, your ring finger, and then your pinky, and that section repeats over and over again. Now, you don't always start here at number 1. These numbers are just relating to the numbers of the string. So first string, second string, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then of course an invisible 7th string. When you play this on your guitar, one of these strings will always be invisible. So maybe you play this pattern starting right here and you play going up the fretboard. Well, maybe this string right here isn't actually on your fretboard. You have to imagine it in order to use this pattern. Now it might sound complicated, but it couldn't be simpler. It's just like playing any other pattern on the guitar neck. You just have to imagine an invisible string, and that's where this repeating pattern that allows you to play this repeating pattern everywhere across the fretboard. And as soon as you use it on your fretboard, you can't not see it. It's literally everywhere, starting from every right note on the fretboard in every key. Okay, just this one pattern. Now, you can use this pattern to hit all the right notes, great. But how do you actually sound good with this pattern? How does that actually work? How do you know what notes to hit? Well, it turns out that in each key, there are 7 different right notes. Okay, there are 7 different correct notes that belong in the key. And each one of these 7 different notes create a unique feeling when you play it. So for example, if you play a chord and somebody plays one of these 7 notes, it's going to feel good. It's going to sound good in the song because it belongs in the key. And these can correspond to the 7 white piano keys that we talked about. What I want to point out to you though is that not only are there 7 feelings, the feeling of each number always feels the same in every single key. So for example, if you play note number 4, it always feels like note number 4. Note number 4 has this particular feeling to it. You can see by the face, right? Note number 5. Note number 5 always feels like note number 5. Doesn't matter what key you're playing in. If you play 5, the 5th, that's what people are talking about when they say, hey, play the 4th, play the 5th, play the 6th. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about these feelings, right? You've probably heard people talk about numbers. The only difference between all the keys is that the pitch changes. The feelings are always the same. So if you play, for example, note number 4 in one key, it feels exactly the same as note number 4 in another key. The only difference is the pitch. So you can go higher in pitch or you can go lower in pitch. And that's it. It is that simple. So how do you actually apply that to your guitar neck? Well, it turns out that here's how you hit all the right notes. Because these 7 feelings are contained within this freedom key pattern. All the 7 feelings are in this pattern, and it repeats. If you see, starts here with 1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Guess what? The same feelings repeat over and over and over and over again. And because those 7 feelings are all contained in this pattern, and because this pattern repeats across the entire guitar neck with no holes or gaps, that is exactly why you can play across the entire guitar neck by feel without even knowing the names of the notes and hit the right notes, the ones that you want to hear when you're playing. This is how the pros make it look so easy, okay? This is how. And it also reveals the why behind everything you play, because once you start using this on your guitar neck, you're going to see that this is actually where chords come from, okay? This is what explains which chords sound good together, which chords belong in each key. How do you even make chords? What are all those chord symbols? What does all that mean? Every single bit of that comes from this pattern right here. Okay, so it explains everything. And that's why you can play by feel across the entire guitar neck and know the why behind everything you do with just this one pattern. That's why we call it the key that unlocks the guitar neck forever, because it does just that. Now, let's move on to the 2 overarching components that you need to become an accomplished guitarist. Okay, so now we're going to zoom way out and we're going to talk about the big picture, the big overarching things. Okay, there's 2 things you need. One is navigation. I'm going to talk to you about what that is in just a second. The other thing is application. So if you look at these pictures, there are 5 images here. There are 5 images here. Okay, these correspond to 5 navigation skills. These correspond to 5 application skills, and I'll show you what GFF means in just a second. But in order to become the guitar player you want to become an accomplished guitar player who can pick up the guitar, play whatever they want, You need to continue to develop and balance your navigation skills, your application skills, and that way you can take your guitar playing as far as you want to go, as long as you want to go, right? So when I say balance, I mean you can't only focus on one, because then you won't have the other. You have to work on this, and then work on this, then work on this, then work on this, then work on this, and that's how you level up your guitar playing over and over and over and over. Okay. So what are these 5 skills that we're talking about? So first of all, let's talk about navigation, the 5 freedom skills. Navigation, what is it? Navigation is what it sounds like. It lets you navigate the fretboard, right? It lets you freely move around the fretboard and know what you're doing. The skills of being able to do that, okay? So navigation can be broken down into 5 categories. And when you add them together, this is where the GFF comes from, by the way. I call it the Guitar Freedom Formula. It's a formula for freedom on guitar. F plus P plus fit plus H plus R equals freedom. I'll show you what that means in just one second. And the reason why is because it literally encompasses, it takes care of, it covers every single thing you can do on your guitar. It gives you the why behind all of it. Just like we talked about that one repeating pattern, the freedom key pattern, it gives you the why and shows you how it all works. That's why you understand how the fretboard works, and it grants you the freedom to perform anything you could physically ever want to do on your guitar. Whether that's soloing, playing song, it doesn't matter what it is. Every single thing you could ever want to do, the navigation skills enable you to do that. Okay? What are the 5 freedom skills? The letters in the Guitar Freedom Formula correspond to the 5 freedom skills. So F is framework, P is phrasing, fit is fitness. Okay, so I'm going to go over the 5 freedom skills. So framework, what is framework? It's how to actually know how to pick up the guitar and hit all the right notes in any key, without having to think about it anywhere on the guitar neck, or even if you had a guitar with 7 strings, 8 strings, 9 strings, even if you had a guitar with 100 frets, this applies. Okay, and that one pattern that we talked about, the freedom key, unlocks a guitar of any size, even a bass guitar. Okay, phrasing. Phrasing is how do you actually make the notes that you now know how to play? How do you make them sound alive and vibrant? How does it sound like real music instead of mechanical and lifeless and boring, like somebody just playing scales or practicing? Fitness. Now, what is fitness? Fitness is all the things that you need to be in shape to play guitar. So how do you get your fingers in shape to actually do what they need to do? To easily stretch, to easily bend to any position you want, instead of having to stumble and mute notes and hit the wrong strings and all that kind of stuff. Next is harmony. What is harmony? Well, it's basically the study of any 2 notes played together. Okay, so how do you know how chords work? So you can play any chord anywhere on the guitar neck and know exactly what you're doing. You will know all the symbols, all the charts, all those numbers. What all that stuff means is very, very simple, and that's what harmony takes care of. Okay, so rhythm. When we talk about rhythm, we're talking about your body's ability to feel grooves and feel rhythms and play at any style. This is part of becoming a musician, right? Yourself becoming a musician, because you have rhythm. We're not talking about strumming patterns, although that's part of it. But strumming patterns is not rhythm. That's just a pattern. A rhythm is something that you can maybe play on the drums. I'm not saying you have to play drums, although it is helpful, but you could be able to tap on your leg, or you can feel different grooves, like maybe if you play a bossa nova, you play rock and roll, if you play blues, it doesn't matter. Your ability to develop your rhythm is what enables you to be able to play any style where you always fit into the music and sound good. Okay, so now we'll talk about application. What is application? Application is what basically takes the navigation skills and applies it to your fretboard. So that's what lets you play songs and solos and write and compose and improvise and sound musical and expressive with soul and style when you play. So application can also be broken down into 5 categories, right? And I'll call that going to the Application Academy, and the reason is because you're learning from all the other musicians who came before you, right? It teaches you and shows you and trains you on how did all the other people that you like to listen to, what did they do with the navigation skills to sound like they sounded? What did they do, and how can you do that too? So I just want to point out, it's worth thinking about that every single guitar player in history, they use the same strings, they have the same notes, the same frets, right? So these application skills, like I said, is what shows you how the greats, how the other guitarists use those navigation skills so that you can have a blast playing their music, you can follow your own interest and inspiration, play their songs, etc., and also ultimately discover your own unique style and sound. So what are the 5 application skills? Well, the 5 application skills are songs, obviously you know what that is, and that's what we call musical structures or compositions, etc. that other people have already created. That way you can have fun, you can discover what's possible, and you can just have a blast playing the music you love. Improvising and writing. So improvising and writing are the same thing. One is just instantly and one is well thought out, right? So improvising is on the spot, writing is thinking about it before you perform it. But it's basically about how do you create your own music. That's the basis of this style skill, right? Which could include, writing your own songs, writing your own solos, writing lyrics, writing compositions, whatever it is that you want to do. That's what improvising and writing is for. Styles. So styles pertains to different types of music. So learning how to play, let's say, blues or rock or folk or fingerstyle or jazz or everything in between. Remember, all styles use the same strings. They use the same notes. They use the same navigation skills. Style shows you how to apply those navigation skills to play in a particular style. Now, tools. How do you use tools to play the instruments, like gear, for example? Guitars, different types of guitars, amps, pedals, recording, production, acoustic guitars, to get the tones that inspire you, the way that you can develop your own unique sound, even recording, right? Recording final products and songs, and even engineering your own music, etc., that you're proud of. By having those tools, you can then use them to create whatever it is that you want to create. And finally, artist studies. Artist studies is exactly what it sounds like. It's studying artists to see what they did, right? How do they navigate and apply? Like the greats. So you can basically, enjoy playing great music, of course, but obviously it helps you to develop your own style because you take what you love from each one of the artists that you study, you add it to your own combination, and that eventually becomes your own style. And that's going to impress anybody who hears you play at this level. All right. So day 3, summary and action steps. What did we talk about today? Well, we first talked about one of the tools that the pros have access to that most people do not know about, which is the invisible string pattern that comes from the piano. Map that onto the fretboard, and it is literally the key, the freedom key, that unlocks the guitar neck forever. We talked about how the 7 feelings let you play across the neck by feel, and that's because the same feelings repeat over and over on the fretboard, and you play the feeling you want. You don't have to think about the notes. We talked about the 2 overarching components that you need to become an accomplished guitar player. It's navigation and application. Now for navigation, we talked about 5 freedom skills. Those 5 freedom skills are framework, phrasing, fitness, harmony, and rhythm. For application, we talked about 5 style skills, and those are songs, improvising and writing, styles, tools, and artist studies. Now today for your action steps, I just want you to do some more thinking, and this is going to be fun, a fun little thinking exercise for you, okay? First, I want you to think about the times when you learned and progressed the most on guitar. When were you the most excited, the thing that you were most excited about learning, a breakthrough that you had? Where were you? How did you learn it? What was it that you actually learned? What we want to start to identify are trends. And I bet you'll find that in those situations, the components of the fast progress, some of the things that we've talked about here were probably present and you didn't know about it at that time. But what we want to do, I just want you to think about that, because we're going to start recreating those moments over and over and over and over again. So you get breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. You're always excited about your progress, and your progress just takes off like you never believed, right? But we have to engineer that into the process. So just think about it. That's it. Just think about when the times you learned the most. What did you do? Where were you? Who were you with? What did you learn? How did it go? Okay. And of course, next thing is I want you to come back and watch tomorrow's lesson. Of course, you definitely want to watch all of the lessons, all of the trainings in this series. Definitely stick with me until day 5, because again, it's super important for you to see the big picture, and all of these pieces connect together. So when you see how it all works, you have a complete knowledge. That's how you can become a complete guitar player. All right. So when you come back tomorrow and you watch day 4, here's what we're going to talk about. The 9 easy progress elements that make up the fastest and most effective way to improve. We'll talk about the most effective learning layout, so that when you're out there online and learning, you know what to look for so you can make the fastest progress. Okay. We'll talk about your fingers and why, stiff or inflexible fingers or fingers that don't cooperate is 100% normal, and what all pros do to get around it. We'll talk about the #1 thing you can do to improve all aspects of your guitar playing at the same time. It's super easy, and I'll give you one simple exercise that will reveal just how much improvement you can make in your fingers' ability to move independently, how much potential you have to be able to stretch and move and play effortlessly just like the pros do with your fingers. So I will see you there tomorrow in day 4.